started with LearnShift in the year 2012. We've taken up issues which could be broad and at the macro level. We've also gone down to small pilot case studies, experimental case studies, and see how do we scale them. So it's moved from broad to more specific, from word to action, but we want everybody to become the voice of LearnShift.
And I think every school across India is trying to get better at teaching and learning. Whilst we know what we need to do in school improvement, the work has never been more complex. And being agile is about being able to respond and be flexible in the school improvement work. So in order to improve those outcomes for student learning, we actually need to focus on teacher learning and adult learning. We need to help them learn the types of practices that isn't just about them reciting content in the presence of students, but really becoming learning designers, where they consider how to bring together their knowledge and expertise, the design of the space, the groupings of students to make sure all of them progress. So there's a lot of good teaching going on across India, but the next level of teaching is being able to help students be their own teachers over time.
A platform that provides for people from school leaders, practitioners, NGOs, from the government side to industry specialists who come here today to discuss education, to discuss macro level changes that we see today in education, and filtering all the way down to changes in the classroom through practitioners that actually affect the most important stakeholders we have, the students.
I come from Silicon Valley, where I've co-founded a technology company, but I've also worked a lot in education systems around the world. And we think LearnShift is a perfect platform through which to think about systemic innovation focused on learning outcomes that can be measured. We also think it's important because of the cross-sector nature of the conversation, having entrepreneurs, policymakers, school leaders, teachers, students, people from various parts of civil society and industry in conversation about the ecosystem that's required to scale innovation is very, very critical.
Every year I meet heads of schools. I think sometimes I meet them only at LearnShift. So that becomes very, very, very precious to me. I look forward to LearnShift again because it comes up with really innovative ideas. The last LearnShift I attended was about empathy. Personally believe that empathy is one of the character building pillars. So when you talk about education, for me it is about creating children with character, and in that I mean empathy and resilience and peace. These are some of the big hallmarks of education.
I think LearnShift provides a great platform or creates a community of practitioners, not just from different parts of the country, from different parts of the world. And I really look forward to coming here and connect with people who have done some good work and learn from them, from their mistakes, from their successes.
Today is not just to discuss our knowledge of policy and how much connection we have, but it's actually to keep focused on impact on learning outcomes. So if I'd frame two questions, one of them would be, throughout the day we're asking how might we actually exploit the current policy situation to improve student learning. It's our job not just to implement what we're told to do, but to look for opportunities as people obsessed with improving learning. So as we have the discussion today, it'd be good to be asking, how can we make the best of, how can we be solution focused within the opportunities that are there? And then secondly, together, how might we actually begin to shape future policy in different ways?
People who have invested in this space over time have to make their voices heard, and and just by staying invested, it may not be the short answer or immediate solution to these things, but people who have earned credibility in that space over time are in fact today in conversations in rooms where we wouldn't be normally all these years.
There is a beautiful reading available by Ayn Rand on how this entire idea of state capturing education. So as long as there is state engagement, there will always be some sort of politicization or the other. And that is where I as an individual is a great supporter, and what I say, as sometimes when I tweet, I say liberate education, and what I mean is liberate from government. Until that happens, the politicization would continue.
There's usually a 6% allocation of our national GDP for education, but they never spend that money. Year on year, they spend about 3.4 to 3.5% of our GDP. That means the money that's been set aside for education doesn't get actually utilized effectively.
The word of capacity is the game. Unless you focus on capacity building, nothing happens. And capacity building means changing the day-to-day practices of a professional as she or he does their work. And policy doesn't touch that. And so where things have headed in the international policy literature is to say macro reform doesn't change the things that matter. But when macro reform is wrong, it gets in the way of things that matter. It can enabling, but it doesn't actually do any of the work. So we've got to stop asking policy to do things that policy cannot do. Policy is a platform. It's about micro reform, and that's why school leadership at the network level and at the school level is where the work of teacher development occurs. So one is how do we get better people in? It's a very long haul trying to change teacher training colleges. My country's been trying to do it for a long time. Others, the bureaucracy in there is very difficult. And so improving the quality of what universities are doing is hard. And so the most of the game is how do we help teachers improve their work as they do the work? Yeah. And the research on this is simple. You can't do it outside the classroom. And the further away it's from the classroom, the less likely it will work. And the research just says teachers should work as teams in disciplined inquiry. They have a problem, they go and do it, they reflect on impact, and they build capacity by doing the work.
You know, the great irony is that official education in most countries with a strong focus on STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, has actually become obsolete. You know, liberal arts so-called, which was meant to belong to the free at one point in time, will become the platform for exponential thinking in the 21st century.
We need board reforms. So now one of the reasons why you will expect children to write the answer that you want them to write is because you've got a board, you've got an examination, and there's an expectation that you must write a particular answer. So therefore, board reforms become very, very important, where there is latitude for the child to be able to opine, to be able to think, to defend his own thoughts and ideas. And I don't think this NEP has spoken enough about board reforms.
I think we need to just start realising that most of the time the locus for change is close to us. Now there are things, board curriculum, board assessment, that might feel a little bit far away. But as we innovate with our schools, we can innovate new assessment designs, other things over time. So I think my view on policy is it can get in the way, but it can't solve our problems. We could spend a very long time trying to get a voice, and by the time we do, the government will change. We're much better off seeing ourselves as change agents, and I think as schools can see students not as, oh, student voice is lovely, students as agents of change. If learning isn't meeting what they need, then what are they going to do about it? How are they going to inform it? And I think that's where things are heading, and I'm convinced that students as agents of change are one of the best large-scale initiatives we can do.
Today's session gave me a lot of questions to think about. The whole idea of staying agile, staying relevant, and yet being centered, having a stable core, I think is relevant for all organizations, particularly schools in India in the 21st century.
The session that we just went through the session, more collaborative, so we discussed a lot of ideas and we met across people and found solutions to our problems right within the dynamics of the group.
I would always put LearnShift as a priority, purely because this helps me every time I come to become a better learner, a more reflective learner.